Most people know Carl Jung as the father of analytical psychology, but what many don't realize is that Jung uncovered a psychological truth about women, one that most men still ignore. In a world of relationships built on surface-level attraction and confusion, Jung's insights go deep into the female psyche, the hidden archetypes, and the dark, unconscious forces that shape how women behave, love, and manipulate. If you want to understand women, not as fantasy, but as real human beings, this might be the most important thing you ever learn. Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior is governed not by logic or conscious thought, but by deep inner structures called archetypes. These archetypes are universal, inherited patterns that shape how we see the world, ourselves, and each other. One of the most important archetypes in Jung's system is the persona, the mask we wear in public and often confuse with our true identity. Jung argued that both men and women develop personas to survive in society. But for women, this mask often becomes more than just a tool. It becomes a prison. From a young age, many women are conditioned to act a certain way. They are told to be agreeable, nurturing, polite, and desirable. They learn how to gain approval by suppressing parts of themselves that might be considered unfeminine, like anger, assertiveness, ambition, or raw sexuality. Over time, they develop a carefully crafted outer personality that aligns with what society expects: the nice girl, the caretaker, the innocent beauty, or the ideal partner. But Jung warned that this outer image is often misleading. It's not the real woman, it's a projection, a mask. And behind it may lie a very different truth. For men, the danger lies in taking the persona at face value. A man might meet a woman who seems gentle, pure, and loving, and believe that she is entirely that. He may project his fantasies onto her, seeing her as an angelic figure who will complete him or soothe his wounded soul. But in doing so, he misses the complexity of her inner world. He misses the anger she hides behind her smile, the power she suppresses, the dreams she sacrificed to play a role. And when these hidden aspects inevitably rise to the surface, when the woman can no longer maintain the mask, the man feels betrayed. He says, "She changed." But in truth, she didn't change. He just never saw her clearly to begin with. Jung exposed the painful truth that most men fall in love not with a woman, but with her persona, and most women, in turn, learn to weaponize their persona to survive, to gain status, or to be desired. This creates a relationship built on illusion. Neither party is truly seen, and both are left feeling misunderstood. Jung's insight was that if a man wants to understand a woman, he must look beyond the mask. He must resist the urge to romanticize her, to idolize her, or to reduce her to a role. Only then can he relate to her as she truly is, not as a symbol, but as a living, breathing soul with contradictions, struggles, and depth. At the heart of Jung's psychology is the belief that all of us, men and women, are far more complex than the roles we play. And yet, most people stay stuck in those roles their entire lives. They wear their masks so long that they forget who they are underneath. For a woman, the mask may become so deeply ingrained that even she can no longer separate her true self from the image she presents. The cost of this is enormous, not just for her, but for everyone who thinks they know her. Understanding this is the first step toward truth in relationships. Jung didn't offer easy answers, only a path. But that path begins with removing the mask and seeing the person behind it, not the fantasy, not the performance, but the reality. Jung's concept of the shadow is perhaps the most unsettling and powerful part of his psychology. The shadow is everything we hide from others and even from ourselves. It's the dark, uncomfortable side of our personality, our insecurities, our rage, our desires for power, control, lust, or vengeance. While most people associate the shadow with men, Jung was clear. Women have shadows too. And when a woman represses her shadow, it doesn't disappear. It becomes stronger, more dangerous, and more likely to control her from the inside. In many societies, women are told to be good, not just morally good, but pleasing, soft, and inoffensive. They are discouraged from expressing anger, ambition, or sexual confidence. These qualities are judged, feared, or labeled as unfeminine. So many women push these traits deep into the unconscious, pretending they don't exist. But the psyche doesn't work that way. Repression doesn't eliminate the shadow, it feeds it. Over time, the suppressed parts of a woman's psyche begin to leak out in subtle and often destructive ways. A woman who has repressed her aggression might become passive-aggressive, using guilt or emotional manipulation instead of direct confrontation. A woman who denies her desire for power might seek control through victimhood, playing helpless while secretly pulling the strings. A woman who buries her sexuality may act cold and distant, or engage in compulsive, unhealthy intimacy. These behaviors are not always intentional. Often they are unconscious, the shadow acting out, trying to be seen. Jung understood that when the shadow is denied, it becomes projected. This means a woman might see her own repressed traits in others, especially in men. She might accuse her partner of being controlling, selfish, or emotionally distant, without realizing these are traits she has disowned in herself. She might seek out chaos, drama, or toxic relationships without understanding why, because her shadow seeks expression in the outer world, and the more she refuses to confront it, the more powerful it becomes. For men, this presents a difficult challenge. Many men have been taught to idealize women, to see them as morally superior, emotionally wiser, or inherently nurturing. But Jung warned that this belief is not only false, it's dangerous. It blinds men to the reality of the female shadow. It makes them vulnerable to manipulation, projection, and psychological games they don't understand. When a man refuses to believe that a woman can be both loving and destructive, nurturing and controlling, angelic and wrathful, he is not seeing her as a whole person. He is seeing a fantasy, and fantasies always break. Jung's truth was not meant to shame or blame women, it was meant to wake people up. The shadow is not evil, it's simply part of being human. But if we refuse to look at it, we become its slave. And in many modern relationships, men and women are both dancing around their own shadows, unable to see themselves, let alone each other. If a man wants to understand a woman deeply, he must be willing to look into her shadow as well as her light. He must let go of the illusion that women are simple, pure, or predictable. Jung taught that wholeness only comes when we accept both sides of the self. Until then, we live in denial, blinded by personas, torn apart by shadows, and forever wondering why love keeps turning into pain. Carl Jung's exploration of the mother complex revealed something most people overlook, that the relationship dynamics between men and women are often rooted in unresolved childhood experiences, particularly those involving the mother figure. For women, this can manifest in two extreme directions. Either they over-identify with the mother role and become compulsively nurturing, or they rebel against it and suppress their nurturing instincts altogether. Jung observed that in many cases, the complex manifests as a woman unconsciously trying to relive or recreate the emotional dynamic she had with her own parents, especially her mother. And in romantic relationships, this can become a powerful, invisible force that distorts love, intimacy, and emotional connection. When a woman becomes entangled in a mother complex, she may feel a deep need to control others emotionally, especially her partner. This control doesn't always look aggressive or dominating. In fact, it often appears as care, concern, or devotion. She may obsess over her partner's well-being, offer unsolicited advice, or treat him like a project that needs fixing. On the surface, this seems like love, but underneath, it's often a subconscious attempt to maintain emotional superiority and dependency. Jung warned that many men unknowingly fall into this trap. Because so many men carry their own unresolved issues with their mothers, either craving maternal love or resenting maternal control, they become especially vulnerable to women who take on a mother-like role. The relationship then shifts from romantic partnership to a distorted parent-child dynamic. The man becomes emotionally dependent, passive, and even regressive. He stops growing, he starts deferring. He loses his independence, not because he's being physically overpowered, but because he's being subtly managed, guided, and emotionally sedated. And here's the most dangerous part. Both people may believe this is love, but Jung emphasized that real love cannot grow where there is psychological domination, no matter how nurturing it may appear. A woman operating under the mother complex is not relating to her partner as a man, but as a child. And a man accepting this treatment is not being loved as a partner. He's being cared for like a broken object or a lost boy. This creates deep resentment over time. The woman may feel exhausted, unappreciated, or suffocated by the very role she chose. The man may feel emasculated, frustrated, or emotionally numb. Yet neither knows why the relationship is dying, because neither understands the unconscious roles they are playing. In Jung's view, the only way to break free from this complex is through conscious awareness. A woman must confront her need to feel indispensable, to be the emotional caretaker, or to mold her partner into someone who validates her sense of worth. She must ask herself, is this love, or is this control dressed up as care? And the man must ask himself, do I love her for who she is, or am I simply clinging to the comfort of being taken care of? Jung didn't condemn the nurturing instinct. He valued the feminine capacity to heal, to support, and to protect. But he made a crucial distinction. Nurturing becomes toxic when it replaces equality with dependency, when it sacrifices truth for harmony, and when it becomes a tool for ego or identity rather than a genuine expression of love. The mother complex is subtle, powerful, and often invisible, especially in a world that romanticizes emotional caregiving. But once seen clearly, it reveals how many relationships are built not on mutual respect, but on psychological dysfunction masquerading as devotion. And until we see it for what it is, we remain trapped in cycles of emotional manipulation, disguised as love. One of Carl Jung's most haunting insights into love and relationships was the idea of projection, specifically how men project their inner anima onto women. The anima, according to Jung, is the inner feminine image that resides in the unconscious mind of every man. It is formed by his early experiences with women, especially his mother, and shaped by cultural expectations, fantasies, and unfulfilled emotional needs. Most men are unaware of this anima, and that ignorance sets the stage for painful, disillusioning relationships. When a man meets a woman who seems to embody his inner ideal, beauty, grace, mystery, nurturing, passion, he often feels an instant connection. He says things like, "She's different. I've never felt this way before," or "She completes me." But Jung warned, what he's feeling is not about the woman at all. It's about his anima. He's falling in love with a part of himself, a projection of his inner world that he has unconsciously cast onto her. The woman becomes a screen, and the man plays his emotional movie onto it. This is where illusion begins. The man is no longer seeing the woman as she truly is. He is seeing what he needs her to be. She becomes an angel, a muse, a savior, a mystery, a symbolic figure rather than a human being. And this illusion can be intoxicating, especially at the start. The man feels alive, transformed, and spiritually awakened. But the danger is that the illusion cannot last. At some point, the real woman will emerge. Her flaws, contradictions, moods, opinions, and limitations will appear. She may not live up to the impossible ideal that has been projected onto her. She might have needs, emotional wounds, or ambitions that don't align with his fantasy. And when this happens, the man often feels betrayed. He accuses her of changing. He says, "You're not the woman I fell in love with." But the truth is more tragic. She never was. Jung believed this moment, the collapse of the projection, is a critical point in a man's psychological development. He can either retreat into bitterness, blaming the woman for not living up to his expectations, or he can awaken. He can realize that the pain he feels is not because the woman deceived him, but because he deceived himself. And if he's brave enough to face that truth, he begins the difficult journey of withdrawing the projection and getting to know the actual person in front of him. But there's another layer to this. Many women unconsciously sense these projections and play into them. They learn how to become the fantasy, a shapeshifter who adapts to what the man wants, seeking love or approval by becoming his ideal. This is not necessarily manipulation, it's often a survival strategy, but it leads to the same result, a relationship based on illusion, not authenticity, and both people end up feeling unseen, unknown, and unfulfilled. Jung's insight was not meant to make men cynical or fearful of women. It was meant to make them conscious of the inner forces that shape their desires, conscious of the difference between love and projection, conscious of the fact that the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves. To love a woman truly, Jung taught, a man must retrieve his projection. He must stop searching for a goddess, a healer, or a fantasy, and start seeing the human being in front of him. That woman may not be perfect, but she is real. And real love begins when illusion ends. Carl Jung believed that the central goal of every human life is individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating the unconscious parts of the psyche into conscious awareness. This isn't just about self-improvement or becoming a better version of yourself. It's about confronting the darkest, most hidden parts of your inner world and accepting them as part of who you are. And according to Jung, this is the only path to truly understanding others, especially in romantic relationships. Without individuation, we don't see the person in front of us. We see our wounds, our projections, our fears, and our fantasies. We don't fall in love. We fall into delusion. Most men live in a state of psychological fragmentation. They identify with their roles, provider, achiever, protector, but remain completely unaware of their inner anima, their unconscious needs, and the shadows that drive their behavior. They crave love, but can't handle vulnerability. They seek connection, but project impossible expectations onto women. They want to be seen and understood, but they never take the time to understand themselves. As a result, their relationships are built on shaky foundations: illusion, dependence, idealization, or resentment. Jung argued that no man can understand a woman until he understands his own anima, the inner feminine aspect of his psyche. The anima isn't just about femininity, it represents emotion, creativity, intuition, and the soul's longing for connection. Most men suppress these qualities because they're taught that feelings are weakness, vulnerability is shameful, and control equals strength. But in denying these aspects, they split themselves in half. They become hard, disconnected, and hollow. And then they look to women to fill that void. This is the root of projection, the unconscious mind trying to complete itself by attaching to another person. But that attachment is not love. It's compensation. It's the soul saying, "Help me find the pieces I've lost." And while this drive can create intense passion and obsession, it cannot sustain a healthy relationship. Because sooner or later, the truth comes out. No one can complete you. No one can carry the weight of your unlived life. You have to do that work yourself. Individuation is that work. It's the journey into the unconscious, to meet your shadow, to integrate your anima, and to face the painful truth about your own limitations and illusions. It's terrifying. It means letting go of the comforting roles and narratives you've built your identity on. It means admitting that your suffering is not just the fault of others, that you've played a role in your own pain, but it's also the only way to stop repeating the same destructive patterns. It's the only way to see a woman clearly, not as a symbol, not as a savior, not as an enemy, but as a person. Jung emphasized that individuation doesn't mean perfection, it means authenticity. It means that a man can enter a relationship not out of need or fantasy, but from a place of wholeness. He doesn't demand that the woman complete him, fix him, or mother him. He meets her as an equal, flawed, complex, and fully human. And in doing so, he gives her the space to be her true self as well. This kind of relationship is not common, because it requires a level of self-awareness that most people never achieve. But when it happens, it is transformative. Most modern relationships are driven by unconscious forces: childhood trauma, social conditioning, suppressed emotion, and unexamined archetypes. People aren't falling in love. They're falling into psychological contracts, where each person agrees to play a role that supports the other's fantasy. But these contracts always break, and when they do, people blame each other, not realizing the real failure was the refusal to know themselves. Jung's message to men was clear: if you want to stop being manipulated, deceived, or disappointed by women, you must stop lying to yourself. You must stop chasing illusions and start doing the inner work. The more fragmented you are, the more likely you are to attract relationships that mirror that fragmentation. But the more whole you become, the more clearly you see others, not through the lens of need or fear, but through the clarity of consciousness. Understanding women, Jung taught, is not about decoding behaviors or memorizing rules. It's about seeing through the layers of projection that distort your vision. And that starts with seeing yourself, honestly, courageously, and without judgment. Only then can love be real. Only then can a relationship become a vessel not for fantasy, but for growth, truth, and profound connection.